At number 10, we have Iguanodon. Iguanodon hasn't changed much since last year's TLC, but with other creatures changing, it has struggled to keep up. And that's mainly because of Knockback shutting down this close combat brawler. When you're chasing people down, your head hitbox stands out in front of the rest of your body, which makes it very easy for people to push you back and prevent you from doing damage. The only time you won't be affected by knockback is when you're either doing your charge ability or when you're in bipedal mode. However, back kick is the better option as it does similar damage to the charge and is easier to catch people off guard with how sudden the attack is. Where Iguanodon shines is in its self-defense, as they have high health, high damage, and abilities that increase their armor and turn in place speed. You can also increase your own damage with abilities like Retaliate, which allows you to do 20% more damage on your next attack for 2 seconds. Landing successful blows against an enemy grants you a stack of Heroic Stand, which after 3 stacks allows you to increase your damage output by 25% for 20 seconds, making Iguanodon tough to hunt but easy to escape. At number 9, we have Dinosaurs. Dinosaurs went through a number of changes last year, but what didn't change is how dangerous this duck really is. The developers stuck with its semi-aquatic playstyle and made its abilities be dependent on whether you were wet or dry. They also added knockback to 2 of its abilities. Backhand sprays a column of water in front of you to wet your enemies and will launch people pretty far away so you can make space. You can absolutely score a kill by knocking people down a hill or off cliffs, but it doesn't generally do much damage. Instead, you can use Claw Frenzy, which lets you charge into an enemy doing multiple points of damage and great knockback. The water buffed abilities apply bleed, and while you still don't have great oxygen, you are very strong, very fast in the water, and you have really good turning radius. You also have a great selection of vocal abilities that will either buff your damage or your knockback and can decrease the amount of damage you take yourself. Duck has definitely been one of my more favorite TLCs and is definitely not to be underestimated. At number 8, we have Tylosaurus. Tylosaurus is our newest dino added to the official roster, and it's taken the aquatic scene by storm. Tylosaurus is basically the Rex of the ocean, with abilities that focus on inflicting fracture damage and bone break to prevent them from getting away. It is very fast and squirmy, but by no means unkillable. Tylo has also muscled in on Sarcosuchus territory with its clamp ability, allowing it to grab smaller dinos and chip away at its health with fractured damage, although it cannot go as far on land or do as much raw damage. The acoustic ability is very strong and a must-have for any build. It not only deals damage, but it also stuns your enemy in place, not preventing movement but preventing the use of any abilities. It is also a great strategic way of getting rid of pouncers that are attached to you, but being restricted to the water and having less raw damage than some other playables keeps Tylosaurus on this spot in the list. At number 7, we have Stegosaurus. I know this is probably really surprising for some of you, but Stegosaurus has remained a strong contender even through all the TLCs. Both its damage, bleed, and turn in place speed are so high that no mid-tier can really touch them. And while Apexes can definitely beat one, they aren't leaving without significant damage. Still, the tail swings can be easily baited, and should a Stego player miss, they really have nothing left. Stego used to have a bite attack a few updates ago that it could use to ward off people who got past its tail until it was ready to swing again, but they didn't add anything to replace it. Now its head area is completely vulnerable and other players definitely exploit this. Having only these tail swing abilities can make Stego kind of boring to play, but at the same time it's tanky, easy to learn, and a pretty good deterrent for apex predators. Hopefully its future TLC will do it justice. Even with its limitations, Stegosaurus is definitely a dinosaur you would regret challenging. At number 6, we have Eotriceratops. I like the model change that came with Eotrike's TLC, even though some of the skins look a little weird now. Eotrike has dropped a couple of places since last year because even though all the creatures have been getting nerfed across the board, Eotrike feels a lot weaker than it was before. Its headbutt still does significant damage to anyone who's not an Apex, and the head slam is devastating. But creatures like T-Rex and Tyranotitan and even high tiers barely blink when hit. The Sharpened Horns ability's damage increase is now split up into 2 abilities, and is basically a requirement to fight any creature of the same tier. The developers gave EO a block to reduce the damage it takes from the front, but it activates very slowly. block takes so long to set up that it's become predictable. And EO is still pretty vulnerable from behind even with the automatic tail attack ability they tried to give it. It's definitely not the oppressive force it used to be. At number 5, we have Anodontosaurus. Ano had a really great TLC that kept the core of its gameplay style and just enhanced it. Gone are the days of standing in one spot and face tanking everything. Now you can move around a lot more and won't instantly die when not crouched. You have the flexibility to make smarter plays, and Fracture is your best friend when it comes to setting those up. You're still a slow runner and swimmer, but does it matter when you can break their legs? When Anodonto does crouch, you still get increased defense, but not so much that you're unkillable. You also get access to 2 more tail abilities that do a lot more damage. Tail Slam is quicker and has a much shorter cooldown, and does significant damage. Smash takes a lot longer to wind up, but does almost 3 times more damage than Tail Slam. It can be pretty hard to land these abilities if your opponent doesn't already have Fracture or a Bone Break. So I would definitely recommend hitting them with Bone Snap or Tail Swing first if you want to have a chance. This is probably the most balanced Ano has ever been. At number 4, we have Bars Boldia. Bars has definitely had one of the best TLCs so far. The model change was a pleasant surprise, and they updated the animations for these sounds and emotes to be a lot more full-bodied and expressive. You still have your tried and true tail abilities like Tail Slam and Tail Attack, but like Anodontosaurus, Bars has also received the Smash ability. They also added Sweep, which is a tail swipe that does a lot of damage but no knockback. Bars then got the Lambio treatment, where instead of the bite and headbutt attack, they decided to give it a kick ability. While I have no problem with those abilities, it does force you to walk in order to use it. Dazing Impacts is another ability that Bars shares with Anodontosaurus, but it works so much better here. With Dazing Impacts, you can apply the Dazed status effect to any of your area of effect attacks in order to stun your enemy and prevent them from using any active abilities. This is incredibly valuable to allow you to wind up a smash or to chain any other tail attack. With so much power, I'm just glad they didn't dumb down this apex herbivore. At number 3, we have Tyrannotitan. The top 3 slots on this list are extremely close, but Tyrannotitan has received a number of nerfs that drops it down to the 3rd spot on this list. Every bite was reduced in damage, and the cooldowns were increased for abilities like Nimble Feet and Juke. Even so, Tyrannotitan is still a great pick as it is the only apex with self-healing. The Feast ability reduces your opponent's bleed heal while allowing you to heal through the combat timer. It also increases your stamina recovery, but that was also reduced in the latest updates. Tyrannotitan has also always had really good stamina and speed, but you also have a number of abilities that help you increase your stamina recovery even more. Blood Soaked lets you increase your recovery for each attacking land. Combined with abilities like Skydiver, Running Start, and Dash, it is super easy to chase down your prey. That's why when a Tyrannotitan wants you dead, you're never outpacing this dinosaur. At number 2, we have Spinosaurus. Spinosaurus got its long-awaited TLC, and they made some very interesting changes. Along with a model change and improved animations came new abilities. Claw Slam is the new area of effect ability that replaced Stomp. If you could land the hits, the range, damage, and knockback is great for dealing with every dinosaur. It started off being very bad, but after some buffs it becomes one of your best abilities. Despite all this, Spinosaurus turns like a bus, and its terrible turning radius is easy to take advantage of. Once a creature gets behind you, it's nearly impossible to turn back around to face them, and you have to rely on your tail to do the damage. Undertow is another ability that's really cool to look at, but is more flashy than anything else. It pulls creatures back into your range, but you're unable to take advantage of the attack because it locks you in place for a second after activating. That's where the vocal ability Dazing Bellows comes into play. With enemies 5% slower and unable to use abilities, you're almost guaranteed to win. Even though Spinosaurus is still a lumbering beast, it isn't any less terrifying. At number 1, we have Tyrannosaurus Rex. This version of T-Rex leans heavily into the ambusher playstyle. Almost every attack does some amount of fracture damage, which can slow down a target and trigger bone break. When you crouch, you are faster and quieter, and sprinting after crouching gives you a 20% speed boost, 100% acceleration, and immunity to knockback. If you're a smaller creature, T-Rex can grab you with its clamp ability. Being bitten while clamped applies fracture damage, so even if you shake free, it's much harder to get away. That's not the only advantage T-Rex has against smaller creatures. The Tyrant's Presence ability removes the armor of smaller creatures weighing less than 3,000 by 25% within a 30-meter radius. Strong Ankles reduces damage to your legs by 25%, and Shatterstride lets you move faster up and downhill. Against Apexes, you have plenty of abilities that increase your damage. Killing Blows increases it by 20% when there's a fracture nearby. Terrible Roar does 25% when you're grouped up. Blood Rivalry will give you an extra 50% fracture damage. And Rampage will give you 50% regular damage. Overall, Bone Break has been the deciding factor for many fights, and T-Rex is an expert at it. That's it for this video. If you like it, definitely subscribe and check out my video from last year. I had a lot of fun making it. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.